the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Bhishma Parva. Section 1, Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva. Om. Having bowed down to Narayana and Nara, the most exalted of male beings, and also the goddess Saraswati, then must the word Jaya be uttered. Janamejaya said, how did those heroes, the Kurus, the Pandavas and the Somakas, and the high-souled kings assembled together from various countries fight? Vaisampayana said, listen thou O Lord of the earth, how those heroes, the Kurus, the Pandavas and the Somakas fought on the sacred plain of the Kurukshetra. Entering Kurukshetra, the Pandavas endued with great might along with the Somakas advanced, desirous of victory against the Kauravas. Accomplished in the study of the Vedas, all of them took great delight in battle. Expectant of success in battle, with their troops they faced the fight. Approaching the army of Dhritarashtra's son, those warriors invincible in battle stationed themselves with their troops on the western part of the plain, their faces turned towards the east. Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, caused tents by thousands to be set up according to rule, beyond the region called Samantapanchaka. The whole earth seemed then to be empty, divested of horses and men, destitute of cars and elephants, and with only the children and the old left at home. From the whole area of Jambudvipa over which the sun sheds his rays, was collected that force or best of kings. Men of all races assembled together, occupied an area extending for many yojanas over districts, rivers, hills and woods. That bull among men, King Yudhishthira, ordered excellent food and other articles of enjoyment for all of them along with their animals. And Yudhishthira fixed diverse watchwords for them, so that one saying this should be known as belonging to the Pandavas. And that descendant of Kuru's race also settled names and badges for all of them for recognition during time of battle. Beholding the standard top of Pritha's son, the high-souled son of Dhritarashtra with a white umbrella held over his head, in the midst of 1,000 elephants and surrounded by his century of brothers, began with all the kings on his side to array his troops against the son of Pandu. Seeing Duryodhana, the Panchalas who took delight in battle were filled with joy and blew their loud-sounding conches and cymbals of sweet sounds. Beholding those troops so delighted, Pandu's son and Vasudeva of great energy had their hearts filled with joy. And those tigers among men, Vasudeva and Dhananjaya, seated on one car, having felt great joy, both blew their celestial conches. And hearing the blare of Giganti and the loud blast of Theodotes belonging unto the two, the combatants ejected urine and excreta. As other animals are filled with fear on hearing the voice of the roaring lion, even so became that force upon hearing those blasts. A frightful dust arose and nothing could be seen. For the sun himself, suddenly enveloped by it, seemed to have set. A black cloud poured a shower of flesh and blood over the troops all around. All this seemed extraordinary. A wind rose there, bearing along the earth myriads of stony nodules and afflicting therewith the combatants by hundreds and thousands. For all that, O monarch, both armies filled with joy, stood addressed for battle on Kurukshetra like two agitated oceans. Indeed, that encounter of the two armies was highly wonderful, like that of two oceans when the end of the yuga is arrived. The whole earth was empty, having only the children and the old left at home, in consequence of that large army mustered by the Kauravas. Then the Kurus, the Pandavas, and the Somakas made certain covenants and settled the rules, O bull of Bharata's race, regarding the different kinds of combat. Persons equally circumstanced must encounter each other, fighting fairly. And if having fought fairly the combatants withdraw without fear of molestation, even that would be gratifying to us. Those who engaged in contests of words should be fought against with words. Those that left the ranks should never be slain. A cow warrior should have a cow warrior for his antagonist, he on the neck of an elephant should have a similar combatant for his foe, a horse should be met by a horse, and a foot soldier or Bharata should be met by a foot soldier. Guided by considerations of fitness, willingness, daring and might, one should strike another, giving notice. No one should strike another that is unprepared or panic-struck. One engaged with another, one seeking quarter, one retreating, one whose weapon is rendered unfit, uncased in mail, should never be struck. Car drivers, animals yoked to cars or carrying weapons, men engaged in the transport of weapons, players on drums and blowers of conches should never be struck. Having made these covenants, the Kurus and the Pandavas and the Somakas wandered much, gazing at each other. And having stationed their forces thus, those bulls among men, those high-souled ones with their troops, became glad at heart, their joy being reflected on their countenances. Thus ends the first section in the Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 2, Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, seeing then the two armies standing on the east and the west for the fierce battle that was impending, the holy Rishi Vyasa the son of Satyavati, that foremost of all persons acquainted with the Vedas, that grandsire of the Bharatas, conversant with the past, the present and the future, and beholding everything as if it were present before his eyes, said these words in private unto the royal son of Vichitravirya, who was then distressed and giving way to sorrow, reflecting on the evil policy of his sons. Vyasa said, O king, thy sons and the other monarchs have their hour arrived. Mustered in battle they will kill one another. O Bharata, their hour having come, they will all perish. Bearing in mind the changes brought on by time, do not yield thy heart to grief. O king, if thou wish to see them fighting in battle, I will, O son, grant thee vision. Behold the battle. Dhritarashtra said, O best of regenerate rishis, I like not to behold the slaughter of kinsmen. I shall however through thy potency hear of this battle minutely. Vaisampayana continued, upon his not wishing to see the battle but wishing to hear of it, Vyasa, that lord of boons, gave a boon to Sanjaya. And addressing Dhritarashtra he said, this Sanjaya, O king, will describe the battle to thee. Nothing in the whole battle will be beyond this one's eyes. Endued, O king, with celestial vision, Sanjaya will narrate the battle to thee. He will have knowledge of everything, manifest or concealed, happening by day or by night, even that which is thought of in the mind, Sanjaya shall know everything. Weapons will not cut him and exertion will not fatigue him. This son of Gavalgani will come out of the battle with life. As regards myself, O bull of Bharata's race, the fame of these Kurus as also of all the Pandavas I will spread. Do not grieve, this is destiny, O tiger among men. It behoveth thee not to give way to grief. It is not capable of being prevented. As regards victory, it is there where righteousness is. Vaisampayana continued, that highly blessed and holy grandsire of the Kurus, having said so, once more addressed Dhritarashtra and said, great will the slaughter be, O monarch, in this battle. I see here also numerous omens indicative of terror. Hawks and vultures, and crows and herons together with cranes, are alighting on the tops of trees and gathering in flocks. These birds, delighted at the prospect of battle, are looking down on the field before them. Carnivorous beasts will feed on the flesh of elephants and steeds. Fierce herons, foreboding terror and uttering merciless cries, are wheeling across the center towards the southern region. In both the twilights, prior and posterior, I daily behold, O Bharata, the sun during his rising and setting to be covered by headless trunks. Tricolored clouds with their extremities white and red, and necks black, charged with lightning and resembling maces in figure, envelop the sun in both twilights. I have seen the sun, the moon, and the stars to be all blazing. No difference in their aspect is to be noted in the evening. I have seen this all day and all night. All this forebodes fear. On even the 15th night of the lighted fortnight, in the month of Kartika, the moon divested of splendor became invisible, or of the hue of fire, the firmament being of the hue of the lotus. Many heroic lords of earth, kings and princes, endued with great bravery and possessed of arms resembling maces, will be slain and sleep lying down on the earth. Daily I notice in the sky during night time the fierce cries of battling boars and cats. The images of gods and goddesses sometimes laugh, sometimes tremble, and sometimes again these vomit blood through their mouths. And sometimes they sweat and sometimes fall down. O monarch, drums without being beaten give sounds, and the great cars of Kshatriyas move without being drawn by animals yoked to them. Kokilas, woodpeckers, jaws, watercocks, parrots, crows, and peacocks, utter terrible cries. Here and there cavalry soldiers cased in mail, armed with weapons, send forth fierce shouts. At sunrise flights of insects by hundreds are seen. In both twilights, the cardinal quarters seem to be ablaze and the Bharata shower dust and flesh. She, O king, who is celebrated over the three worlds and is applauded by the righteous, even that constellation Arundhati keepeth her lord Vasistha on her back. The planet Sunny also, O king, appeareth afflicting the constellation Rohini. The sign of the deer in the moon hath deviated from its usual position. A great terror is indicated. Even though the sky is cloudless, a terrible roar is heard there. The animals are all weeping and their tears are falling fast. Thus ends the second section in the Jambukhanda Ningrima Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 3, Jambukhanda Ningrima Parva continued. Vyasa said, asses are taking births in kin, some are having sexual pleasure with mothers. The trees in the forests are exhibiting unseasonable flowers and fruits. Women quick with child, and even those that are not so, are giving birth to monsters. Carnivorous beasts, mingling with carnivorous birds, are feeding together. Ill-omened beasts, some having 3 horns, some with 4 eyes, some with 5 legs, some with 2 sexual organs, some with 2 heads, some with 2 tails, some having fierce teeth, are being born, and with mouths wide open are uttering unholy cries. Horses with 3 legs, furnished with crests, having 4 teeth, and endued with horns, are also being born. O king, in thy city is also seen that the wives of many Aktaras of Brahma are bringing forth Garudas and peacocks. The mare is bringing forth the cow calf and the bitch is bringing forth, O king, jackals and cocks. And antelopes and parrots are all uttering inauspicious cries. Certain women are bringing forth 4 or 5 daughters at a time, and these as soon as they are born dance and sing and laugh. The members of the lowest orders are laughing and dancing and singing, and thus indicating direful consequences. Infants, as if urged by death, are drawing armed images and are running against one another armed with clubs, and desirous of battle are also breaking down the towns they erect in sport. Lotuses of different kinds and lilies are growing on trees. Strong winds are blowing fiercely and the dust sees it not. The earth is frequently trembling, and Rahu approacheth towards the sun. The white planet Ketu stayeth, having passed beyond the constellation Chitra. All this particularly bodeth the destruction of the Kurus. A fierce comet riseth, afflicting the constellation Pusya. This great planet will cause frightful mischief to both the armies. Mars wheeleth towards Maga and Vrihaspati, Jupiter, towards Shravana. The sun's offspring, Sunny, approaching towards the constellation Bhaga, afflicteth it. The planet Sukra, ascending towards Purva Bhadra, shineth brilliantly, and wheeling towards the Uttabhadra, looketh towards it, having effected a junction with a smaller planet. The white planet Ketu, blazing up like fire mixed with smoke stayeth, having attacked the bright constellation Jeshta that is sacred to Indra. The constellation Dhruva, blazing fiercely, wheeleth towards the right. Both the moon and the sun are afflicting Rohini. The fierce planet Rahu hath taken up its position between the constellations Chitra and Swati. The red-bodied Mars, possessed of the effulgence of fire, wheeling circuitously, stayeth in a line with the constellation Shravana, overridden by Vrihaspati. The earth that produceth particular crops at particular seasons is now covered with the crops of every season. Every barley stalk is graced with 5 years and every paddy stalk with 100. They that are the best of creatures in the worlds and upon whom depends the universe, viz. Kin, when milked after the calves have their suck, yield only blood. Radiant rays of light emanate from bows, and swords blaze forth brilliantly. It is evident that the weapons behold before them the battle, as if it were already arrived. The hue of weapons and the water, as also of coats of mail and standards, is like that of fire. A great slaughter will take place. In this battle, O Bharata, of the Kurus with the Pandavas, the earth, O monarch, will be a river of blood with the standards of warriors as its rafts. Animals and birds on all sides, with mouths blazing like fire, uttering fierce cries and displaying these evil omens, are foreboding terrible consequences. A fierce bird with but one wing, one eye, and one leg, hovering over the sky in the night, screameth frightfully in wrath as if for making the hearers vomit blood. It seemeth, O great king, that all weapons are now blazing with radiance. The effulgence of the constellation known by the name of the 7 high-souled rishis hath been dimmed. Those 2 blazing planets, viz., Vrihaspati and Sani, having approached the constellation called Visakha, have become stationary there for a whole year. 3 lunations twice meeting together in course of the same lunar fortnight, the duration of the latter is shortened by 2 days. On the 13th day, therefore, from the first lunation, according as it is the day of the full moon or the new moon, the moon and the sun are afflicted by Rahu. Such strange eclipses, both lunar and solar, forebode a great slaughter. All the quarters of the earth, being overwhelmed by showers of dust, look inauspicious. Fierce clouds, portentous of danger, drop bloody showers during the night. Rahu of fierce deeds is also, O monarch, afflicting the constellation Kirtika. Rough winds, portending fierce danger, are constantly blowing. All these beget a war characterized by many sad incidents. The constellations are divided into 3 classes. Upon one or another of each class, a planet of evil omen has shed its influence, foreboding terrible dangers. A lunar fortnight had hitherto consisted of 14 days, or 15 days as usual, or 16 days. This, however, I never knew that the day of new moon would be on the 13th day from the first lunation, or the day of full moon on the 13th day from the same. And yet in course of the same month both the moon and the sun have undergone eclipses on the 13th days from the day of the first lunation. The sun and the moon, therefore, by undergoing eclipses on unusual days, will cause a great slaughter of the creatures on the earth. Indeed, Rakshasas, though drinking blood by mouthful, will yet not be satiated. The great rivers are flowing in opposite directions. The waters of rivers have become bloody. The wells foaming up, are bellowing like bulls. Meteors, effulgent like Indra's thunderbolt, fall with loud hisses. When this night passeth away, evil consequences will overtake you. People, for meeting together, coming out their houses with lighted brands, have still to encounter a thick gloom all round. Great rishis have said that in view of such circumstances the earth drinks the blood of thousands of kings. From the mountains of Kailasa and Mandara and Himavat, Thousands of explosions are heard and thousands of summits are tumbling down. In consequence of the earth's trembling, each of the four oceans having swelled greatly, seems ready to transgress its continents for afflicting the earth. Fierce winds charged with pointed pebbles are blowing, crushing mighty trees. In villages and towns trees, ordinary and sacred, are falling down, crushed by mighty winds and struck by lightning. The sacrificial fire, when Brahmanas pour libations on it, becomes blue or red or yellow. Its flames bend towards the left, yielding a bad scent, accompanied by loud reports. Touch, smell and taste have, O monarch, become what they were not. The standards of warriors repeatedly trembling are emitting smoke. Drums and cymbals are throwing off showers of coal dust. And from the tops of tall trees all around, crows wheeling in circles from the left are uttering fierce cries. All of them again are uttering frightful cries of Pakka, Pakka, and are perching upon the tops of standards for the destruction of the kings. Vicious elephants, trembling all over, are running hither and thither, urinating and ejecting excreta. The horses are all melancholy, while the elephants are resorting to the water. Hearing all this, let that be done which is suitable, so that, O Bharata, the world may not be depopulated. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words of his father, Dhritarashtra said, I think all this hath been ordained of old. A great slaughter of human beings will take place. If the kings die in battle observing the duties of the Kshatriya order, they will then, attaining to the regions reserved for heroes, obtain only happiness. These tigers among men, casting away their lives in great battle, will win fame in this and great bliss forever in the next world. Vaisampayana continued, O best of kings, thus addressed by his son Dhritarashtra, that prince of poets, the Muni Vyasa concentrated his mind in supreme yoga. Having contemplated for only a short space of time, Vyasa once more said, without doubt, O king of kings, it is time that destroyeth the universe. It is time also that createth the worlds. There is nothing here that is eternal. Show the path of righteousness to the Kurus, to thy kinsmen, relatives and friends. Thou art competent to restrain them. The slaughter of kinsmen hath been said to be sinful. Do not do that which is disagreeable to me, O king. Death himself hath been born in the shape of thy son. Slaughter is never applauded in the Veds. It can never be beneficial. The usages of one's race are as one's own body. Those usages slay him that destroyeth them. For the destruction of this race and of those kings of the earth, it is time that maketh thee deviate into the wrong path like one in distress. Although thou art competent to walk along the path of righteousness, O king, in the shape of thy kingdom hath calamity come to thee. Thy virtue is sustaining a very great diminution. Show what righteousness is unto thy sons, O thou that art invincible. Of what value is that kingdom to thee which bringeth sin to thee? Take care of thy good name, thy virtue and thy fame. Thou wilt then win heaven. Let the Pandavas have their kingdom and let the Kauravas have peace. While that best of Brahmanas was saying these words in a sorrowful tone, Dhritarashtra, the son of Ambika, accomplished in speech, once more addressed him saying, My knowledge of life and death is similar to thine. The truth is known to me as regards these. Man, however, in what concerns his own interests is deprived of judgment. O sire, know me to be one who is an ordinary person. Of immeasurable power thou art. I pray thee to extend thine towards us. Of soul under complete control, thou art our refuge and instructor. My sons are not obedient to me, O great Rishi. My understanding too is not inclined to commit sin. Thou art the cause of the fame, the achievements and the inclination for virtue of the Bharatas. Thou art the reverend grandsire of both the Kurus and the Pandavas. Vyasa said, O royal son of Vichitravirya, tell me freely what is in thy mind. I will remove thy doubts. Dhritarashtra said, O Holy One, I desire to hear from thee of all those indications that happen unto those that become victorious in battle. Vyasa said, the sacred fire assumes a cheerful radiance. Its light ascends upwards. Its flame bends towards the right. It blazes up without being smoky. The libations poured on it yield a fragrant scent. It is said that these are the indications of future success. The conches and cymbals yield sounds that are deep and loud. The sun as well as the moon gives pure rays. It is said that these are the indications of future success. Crows, whether stationary or on their wings, utter cries that are agreeable. They again that are behind, urge the warriors to advance, while they that are ahead forbid all advance. Where vultures, swans, parrots, cranes, and woodpeckers utter delightful cries and wheel towards the right, the Brahmanas say that their victory in battle is certain. They whose divisions, in consequence of ornaments, coats of mail and standards or the melodious neigh of their steeds become resplendent and incapable of being gazed at, always conquer their foes. They who utter cheerful shouts, those warriors of Bharata, whose energies are not damped and whose garlands do not fade, always cross the ocean of battle. They who utter cheerful shouts having penetrated into the divisions of the foe, who utter even kind words to the enemy and who, before striking forewarn the foe, win victory. The objects of hearing, vision, taste, touch, and smell, without undergoing any change for the wars, become auspicious. This also is another indication of a victorious army, viz., there is joy among the combatants at all times. This also is another indication of success, viz., the winds that blow, the clouds, and the birds, all become favorable, while the clouds, so favorable, and the rainbows drop beneficial showers. These, O king, are the indications of armies to be crowned with victory, while, O monarch, all these become otherwise in the case of those that are about to be destroyed. Whether the army be small or large, cheerfulness as an attribute of the combatants, is said to be a certain indication of victory. One soldier, struck with panic, can cause even a large army to take fright and fly. And when an army, struck with panic, takes to flight, it causes even heroic warriors to take fright. If a large army is once broken and put to rout, it cannot, like a herd of deer disordered in fright or a mighty current of water, be easily checked. If a large army is once routed, it is incapable of being rallied. On the other hand, beholding it broken, even those well skilled in battle of Bharata, become heartless. Beholding soldiers struck with fear and flying, the panic spreads in other directions, and soon, O king, the whole army is broken and flies in all directions. And when an army is routed, even brave leaders, O king, at the head of large divisions consisting of the four kinds of forces, are incapable of rallying them. An intelligent man, always exerting himself with activity, should strive to win success by the aid of means. It is said that that success which is won by negotiation and other means is the very best. That which is achieved by producing disunion among the foe is indifferent. While that success, O king, which is won by battle, is the worst. In battle are many evils, the initial one, as it is said, being slaughter. Even 50 brave men who know one another, who are undepressed, who are free from family ties, and who are firmly resolved, can crush a large army. Even 5, 6, 7 men, who are unretreating, win victory. Vinatas sung Garuda, O Bharata, beholding even a large concourse of birds, asketh not the aid of many followers to vanquish them. The strength in number, therefore, of an army is not always the cause of victory. Victory is uncertain. It depends on chance. Even they that become victorious have to sustain loss. Thus ends the third section in the Jambukhanda Ningrima Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 4, Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, having said these words unto Dhritarashtra, Vyasa took his departure. And Dhritarashtra also, having heard those words, began to reflect in silence. And having reflected for only a short space of time, he began to sigh repeatedly. And soon, O bull of Bharata's race, the king asked Sanjaya of soul worthy of praise, saying, O Sanjaya, these kings, these lords of earth, so brave and taking delight in battle, are for smiting one another with weapons of divers kinds, being prepared to lay down their very lives for the sake of earth. Incapable of being restrained, they are indeed smiting one another for increasing the population of Yama's domain. Desirous of prosperity connected with the possession of earth, they are incapable of bearing one another. I therefore think that earth must be possessed of many attributes. Tell me all these, O Sanjaya. Many thousands, many millions, many tens of millions, many hundreds of millions, heroic men have come together at Kurujangala. I desire to hear, O Sanjaya, with accurate details about the situation and dimensions of those countries and cities from which they have come. Through the potency of that regenerate Rishi Vyasa of immeasurable energy, thou art endued with the lamp of celestial perception and the eye of knowledge. Sanjaya said, O thou of great wisdom, I will recount to thee the merits of earth according to my knowledge. Behold them with thy eye of wisdom. I bow to thee, O bull of Bharata's race. Creatures in this world are of two kinds, mobile and immobile. Mobile creatures are of three kinds according to their birth, viz., oviparous, viviparous, and those engendered by heat and damp. Of mobile creatures, O king, the foremost are certainly those called viviparous. Of viviparous creatures, the foremost are men and animals. Animals, O king, of diverse forms are of 14 species. 7 have their abodes in the woods, and 7 of these are domestic. Lions, tigers, boars, buffaloes, and elephants, as also bears and apes are, O king, regarded as wild. Kine, goats, sheep, men, horses, mules, and asses, these 7 amongst animals are reckoned as domestic by the learned. These 14, O king, complete the tale of domestic and wild animals mentioned, O Lord of earth, in the Ved, and on which the sacrifices rest. Of creatures that are domestic, men are foremost, while lions are the foremost of those that have their abode in the woods. All creatures support their life by living upon one another. Vegetables are said to be immobile, and they are of 4 species, viz., trees, shrubs, creepers, creeping plants existing for only a year, and all stemless plants of the grass species. Of mobile and immobile creatures, there are thus 1 less 20, and as regards their universal constituents, there are 5. 24 in all. These are described as Gayatri, Brahma, as is well known to all. He who knows these truly to be the sacred Gayatri, possessed of every virtue, is not liable, O best of the Bharatas, to destruction in this world. Everything springeth from the earth, and everything when destroyed, mergeth into the earth. The earth is the stay and refuge of all creatures, and the earth is eternal. He that hath the earth, hath the entire universe with its mobile and immobile population. It is for this that, longing for the possession of the earth, kings slay one another. Thus ends the 4th section in the Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 5, Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva continued. Dhritarashtra said, The names of rivers and mountains, O Sanjaya, as also of provinces and all other things resting on the earth, and their dimensions, O thou that are acquainted with the measures of things of the earth in its entirety and the forests, O Sanjaya, recount to me in detail. Sanjaya said, O great king, all things in the universe, in consequence of the presence in them of the 5 elements, have been said to be equal by the wise. These elements are space, air, fire, water and earth, Their respective attributes are sound, touch, vision, taste, and scent. Every one of these elements possesses, in addition to what is especially its own, the attribute or attributes of that or those coming before it. The earth therefore is the foremost of them all, possessing as it does the attributes of all the other four, besides what is specially its own, as said by rishis acquainted with truth. There are four attributes, O king, in water. Scent does not exist in it. Fire has three attributes, viz., sound, touch, and vision. Sound and touch belong to air, while space has sound alone. These five attributes, O king, exist in this way in the five principal elements depending on which all creatures in the universe exist. They exist separately and independently when there is homogeneity in the universe. When however these do not exist in their natural state but with one another, then creatures spring into life, furnished with bodies. This is never otherwise. The elements are destroyed, in the order of the one succeeding merging into the one that proceeds, and they spring also into existence, one arising from the one before it. All of these are immeasurable, their forms being Brahma itself. In the universe are seen creatures consisting of the five elements. Men endeavor to ascertain their proportions by exercising their reason. Those matters however that are inconceivable should never be sought to be solved by reason. That which is above human nature is an indication of the inconceivable. O son of Kuru's race, I will however describe to thee the island called Sudasana. This island, O king, is circular and of the form of a wheel. It is covered with rivers and other pieces of water and with mountains looking like masses of clouds, and with cities and many delightful provinces. It is also full of trees furnished with flowers and fruits, and with crops of diverse kinds and other wealth. And it is surrounded on all sides with the salt ocean. As a person can see his own face in a mirror, even so is the island called Sudasana seen in the lunar disk. Two of its parts seem to be a peepal tree, while two others look like a large hare. It is surrounded on all sides with an assemblage of every kind of deciduous plant. Besides these portions, the rest is all water. What remains I will describe to thee shortly. The rest I will speak of afterwards. Listen now to this that I describe in brief. Thus ends the fifth section in the Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 6, Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva continued. Dhritarashtra said, Thou art intelligent, O Sanjaya, and acquainted with the truth about everything. Thou hast duly given a description of the island in brief. Tell us now of the island in detail. Tell us now of the dimension of the expanse of land that lies in the portion looking like a hare. Thou mayst then speak of the portion resembling Pipala tree. Vaisampayana said, thus addressed by the king, Sanjaya began to say. Sanjaya said, stretching from east to west are these 6 mountains that are equal and that extend from the eastern to the western ocean. They are Himavat, Hemakuta, that best of mountains called Nishada, Nila abounding with stones of lapis lazuli, Sweta white as the moon, and the mountains called Shringavat composed of all kinds of metals. These are the 6 mountains, O king, which are always the resorts of Siddhas and Charanas. The space lying between each of these measures 1,000 yojana, and thereon are many delightful kingdoms. And these divisions are called Vashas, O Bharata. In all those kingdoms reside creatures of diverse species. This, the land where we are, is in the Vasha that is called after Bharata. Next to it, northwards, is the Vasha called after Himavat. The land that is beyond Hemakuta is called Hrevasha. South of the Nila range and on the north of the Nishada is a mountain, O king, called Malyavat that stretches from east to west. Beyond Malyavat northwards is the mountain called Gandhamadana. Between these two viz, Malyavat and Gandhamadana is a globular mountain called Meru, made of gold. Effulgent as the morning sun, it is like fire without smoke. It is 84,000 yojanas high, and O king, its depth also is 84 yojanas. It standeth bearing the worlds above, below and transversely. Besides Meru are situated, O Lord, these 4 islands, viz., Bhadrasva and Ketumala, and Jambudvipa, otherwise called Bharata and Uttarkuru, which is the abode of persons who have achieved the merit of righteousness. The bird Sumukha, the son of Suparna, beholding that all the birds on Meru were of golden plumage, reflected that he should leave that mountain, inasmuch as there was no difference between the good, middling, and bad birds. That foremost of luminaries, the sun, always circumambulates Meru, as also the moon with his attendant constellation, and the wind god too. The mountain, O king, is endued with celestial fruits and flowers, and it is covered all over with mansions made of furnished gold. There, on that mountain, O king, the celestials, the Gandharvas, the Asuras and the Rakshasas, accompanied by the tribes of Apsaras, always sport. There Brahman and Rudra and also Sakra, the chief of the celestials, assembled together, performed divers kinds of sacrifices with plentiful gifts. Tamvuru, and Nirda and Viswavesu and the Hahas and the Huhas, repairing thither, adored the foremost of the celestials with divers hymns. The high-souled 7 rishis and Kasyapa, the lord of creatures, repair thither, blessed be thou, on every Parva day. Upon the summit of that mountain, Usnas, otherwise called the poet, sported with the Daityas his disciples. The jewels and gems that we see, and all the mountains abounding in precious stones, are of Meru. Therefrom a 4th part is enjoyed by the holy Kuvara. Only a 16th part of that wealth he giveth unto men. On the northern side of Meru is a delightful and excellent forest of Karnikaras, covered with the flowers of every season and occupying a range of hills. There the illustrious Pasupati himself, the creator of all things, surrounded by his celestial attendants and accompanied by Uma, sporteth bearing a chain of Karnikara flowers on his neck reaching down to his feet, and blazing with radiance, with his 3 eyes resembling 3 risen suns. Him Siddhas, truthful in speech, of excellent vows and austere ascetic penances, can behold. Indeed, Maheswara is incapable of being seen by persons of wicked conduct. From the summit of that mountain, like a stream of milk, O ruler of men, the sacred and auspicious Ganga, otherwise called Bhagirathi, adored by the most righteous, of universal form and immeasurable, and issuing out with terrific noise, falleth with impetuous force on the delightful lake of Chandramas. Indeed that sacred lake, like an ocean, hath been formed by Ganga herself. While leaping from the mountains, Ganga, incapable of being supported by even the mountains, was held for 100,000 years by the bearer of Pinaka on his head. On the western side of Meru, O king, is Ketumala. And there also is Jambukhanda. Both are great seats of humanity, O king. There, O Bharata, the measure of human life is 10,000 years. The men are all of a golden complexion, and the women are like Apsaras. And all the residents are without sickness, without sorrow, and always cheerful. The men born there are of the effulgence of melted gold. On the summits of Gandhamadana, Kuvara, the lord of the Guhayakas, with many Rakshasas and accompanied by tribes of Apsaras, passed his time in joy. Besides Gandhamadana there are many smaller mountains and hills. The measure of human life there is 11,000 years. There, O king, the men are cheerful, and endued with great energy and great strength, and the women are all of the complexion of the lotus and highly beautiful. Beyond Nila is the Vasha called Sweta, beyond Sweta is the Vasha called Hiranyaka. Beyond Hiranyaka is the Vasha called Airavata, covered with provinces. The last Vasha in the extreme north and Bharata's Vasha in the extreme south are both, O king, of the form of a bow. These 5 Vashas, viz., Sweta, Hiranyaka, Ilavrita, Harivarsha, and Hemavat Varsha are in the middle, of which Ilavritha exists in the very middle of all. Amongst these 7 Varshas the 5 already mentioned and Airavata and Bharata, that which is further north, excels the one to its immediate south in respect of these attributes, viz., the period of life, stature, health, righteousness, pleasure, and profit. In these Varshas, O Bharata, creatures, though of diverse species, yet live together. Thus, O king, is earth covered with mountains. The huge mountains of Hemakutta are otherwise called Kailasa. There, O king, wise Ravana passed his time in joy with his Guhayakas. Immediately to the north of Kailasa and near the mountains of Mainaka there is a huge and beautiful mountain called Manimaya, endued with golden summits. Beside this mountain is a large, beautiful, crystal and delightful lake called Vindusaras with golden sands on its beach. There King Bhagiratha, beholding Ganga, since called after his own name, resided for many years. There may be seen innumerable sacrificial stakes made of gems and chaitya tree made of gold. It was there that he of 1,000 eyes and great fame won ascetic success by performing sacrifices. There the Lord of all creatures, the eternal creator of all the worlds, endued with supreme energy, surrounded by his ghostly attendants, is adored. There Nara and Narayana, Brahman and Manu, and Stanu as the 5th are ever present. And there the celestial stream Ganga, having 3 currents issuing out of the region of Brahman, first showed herself, and then dividing herself into 7 streams became Vaswakasara, Nalini, the sin-cleansing Saraswati, Jamvunadi, Sita, Ganga and Sindhu as the 7th. The Supreme Lord hath himself made the arrangement with reference to that inconceivable and celestial stream. It is there that sacrifices have been performed by gods and rishis on 1,000 occasions after the end of the Yuga, when creation begins. As regards the Saraswati, in some parts of her course she becometh visible and in some parts not so. This celestial 7-fold Ganga is widely known over the 3 worlds. Rakshasas reside on Himavat, Guhayakas on Hemakutta, and serpents and Nagas on Nishada, and ascetics on Gokarna. The Sweta mountains are said to be the abode of the celestial and the Asuras. The Gandharvas always reside on Nishadas and the regenerate rishis on Nila. The mountains of Shringavat also are regarded as the resort of the celestials. These then, O great king, are the 7 vrihas of the world as they are divided. Diverse creatures, mobile and immobile, are placed in them all. Diverse kinds of prosperity, both providential and human, are noticeable in them. They are incapable of being counted. Those desirous, however, of their own good believe all this. I have now told thee of that delightful region of land of the form of a hare about which thou hadst asked me. At the extremities of that region are the 2 Varshas, viz., one on the north and the other on the south. Those 2 also have now been told to thee. Then again the 2 islands Nagadvipa and Kezyapadvipa are the 2 ears of this region of the form of a hare. The beautiful mountains of Melia, O king, having rocks like plates of copper, form another prominent part of Jamvudvipa, that having its shape resembling a hare. Thus ends the 6th section in the Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 7, Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva continued. Dhritarashtra said, Tell me, O Sanjaya, thou of great intelligence, of the regions to the north and the east side of Meru, as also of the mountains of Malyavat in detail. Sanjaya said, On the south of the Nila mountain and the northern side of Meru are the sacred northern Kurus, O king, which are the residence of the Siddhas. The trees there bear sweet fruits and are always covered with fruits and flowers. All the flowers there are fragrant and the fruits of excellent taste. Some of the trees again, O king, yield fruits according to the will of the plucker. There are again some other trees, O king, that are called milk-yielding. These always yield milk and the 6 different kinds of food of the taste of Amrita itself. Those trees also yield cloths, and in their fruits are ornaments for the use of man. The entire land abounds with fine golden sands. A portion of the region there, extremely delightful, is seen to be possessed of the radiance of the ruby or diamond, or of the lapis lazuli or other jewels and gems. All the seasons there are agreeable, and nowhere does the land become miry, O king. The tanks are charming, delicious, and full of crystal water. The men born there have dropped from the world of the celestials. All are of pure birth, and all are extremely handsome in appearance. Their twins of opposite sexes are born, and the women resemble apsaras in beauty. They drink the milk, sweet as samrita, of those milk-yielding trees already mentioned. And the twins born there of opposite sexes grow up equally. Both possessed of equal beauty, both endued with similar virtues, and both equally dressed, both grow up in love, O monarch, like a couple of chakrabakas. The people of that country are free from illness and are always cheerful. 10,000 and 10,100 years they live, O king, and never abandon one another. A class of birds called barunda, furnished with sharp beaks and possessed of great strength, take them up when dead and throw them into mountain caves. I have now described to thee, O king, the northern Kurus briefly. I will now describe to thee the eastern side of Meru duly. Of all the regions there, the foremost, O king, is called Bhadrasva, where there is a large forest of Bhadrasalas, as also a huge tree called Kalamra. This Kalamra, O king, is always graced with fruits and flowers. That tree again is a yojana in height and is adored by Siddhas and the Charana. The men there are all of a white complexion, endued with great energy, and possessed of great strength. The women are of the complexion of lilies, very beautiful and agreeable to sight. Possessed of radiance of the moon and white as the moon, their faces are as the full moon. Their bodies again are as cool as the rays of the moon, and they are all accomplished in singing and dancing. The period of human life there, O bull of the Bharata's race, is 10,000 years. Drinking the juice of the Kalamra, they continue youthful forever. On the south of Nila and the north of Nishada, there is a huge Jambu tree that is eternal. Adored by the Siddhas and Charanas, that sacred tree granted every wish. After the name of that tree this division hath ever been called Jambudvipa. O bull of Bharata race, 1,100 yojanas is the height of that prince of trees, which touches the very heavens, O king of men. 2,500 cubits measure the circumference of a fruit of that tree, which bursts when ripe. In falling upon the earth these fruits make a loud noise and then pour out, O king, a silvery juice on the ground. That juice of the Jambu, becoming, O king, a river and passing circuitously round Meru, cometh to the region of the northern Kurus. If the juice of that fruit is quaffed, it conduces to peace of mind. No thirst is felt ever after, O king. Decrepitude never weakens them. And there are species of gold called Jamvunada and used for celestial ornaments, very brilliant and like the complexion of Indragopaka insects is produced. The men born there are of the complexion of the morning sun. On the summit of Malyavat is always seen, O bull of Bharata's race, the fire called Samvataka, which blazed forth at the end of the Yuga for the destruction of the universe. On Malyavat's summit towards the east are many small mountains, and Malyavat, O king, measures 11,000 yojanas. The men born there are of the complexion of gold. And they are all fallen from the region of Brahman and are utterers of Brahma. They undergo the severest of ascetic austerities, and their vital seed is drawn up. For the protection of creatures they all enter the sun. Numbering 66,000 they proceed in advance of Aruna, surrounding the sun. Heated with the sun's rays for 66,000 years, they then enter the lunar disk. Thus ends the 7th section in the Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 8, Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva continued. Dhritarashtra said, "Tell me truly, O Sanjaya, the names of all the vrihas and of all the mountains, and also of all those that dwell on those mountains. Sanjaya said, on the south of Sweta and the north of Nishada, is the Vasha called Romanica. The men that are born there are all of white complexion, of good parentage and handsome features. And the men born there are also all without enemies. And they live, O king, for 11,500 years, being ever of cheerful hearts. On the south of Nishada is the Vasha called Hiranmaya, where is the river called Hiranvati. There, O king, liveth that foremost of birds named Garuda. And the people there, O monarch, are all followers of the Yakshas, wealthy and of handsome features. And, O king, the men there are endued with great strength and have cheerful hearts, and they live for 12,500 years, O king, which is the measure of their lives. The mountains of Shringavat, O ruler of men, have 3 beautiful summits. One of these is made of jewels and gems, another is very wonderful, being made of all kinds of gems and adorned with palatial mansions. There the self-luminous lady named Sandali always liveth. On the north of Shringavat and up to the margin of the sea, O king, the Vasha called Airavat. And because this jewelled mountain is there, therefore is this Vasha superior to all. The sun giveth no heed there, and men are not subject to decay. And the moon there, with the stars becoming the only source of light, covereth the firmament. Possessing the radiance and complexion of the lotus and endued with eyes that resemble lotus petals, the men born there have the fragrance of the lotus. With winkless eyes and agreeable scent emanating from their bodies, they go without food and have their senses under control. They are all fallen from the region of the celestials and are all, O king, without sin of any kind. And they live, O monarch, for 13,000 years, that being, O best of the Bharatas, the measure of their lives. And so on the north of the milky ocean, the Lord Hari of unlimited puissance dwelleth on his car made of gold. That vehicle is endued with 8 wheels, with numerous supernatural creatures stationed on it and having the speed of the mind. And its complexion is that of fire, and it is endued with mighty energy and adorned with Jambukhanda gold. He is the Lord of all creatures and is possessed, O bull of Bharata's race, of every kind of prosperity. In him the universe merges when dissolution comes, and from him it again emanates when the creative desire seizes him. He is the actor, and it is he that makes all others act. He, O monarch, is earth, water, space, air, and fire. He is sacrifices self unto all creatures, and fire is his mouth. Vaisampayana continued, the high-souled king Dhritarashtra, thus addressed by Sanjaya, became, O monarch, absorbed in meditation about his sons. Endued with great energy, he then, having reflected, said these words, without doubt, O Suta's son, it is time that destroyeth the universe. And it is time that again createth everything. Nothing here is eternal. It is Nara and Narayana, endued with omniscience, that destroyeth all creatures. The gods speak of him as Vaikuntha, of immeasurable puissance, while men call him Vishnu, one that pervadeth the universe. Thus ends the 8th section in the Jambukhanda Ningrima Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 9, Jambukhanda Ningrima Parva continued. Dhritarashtra said, tell me truly, O Sanjaya, of this Vasha that is called after Bharata, where this senseless force hath been collected, in respect of which this my son Duryodhana hath been so very covetous, which the sons of Pandu also are desirous of obtaining, and in which my mind too sinketh. O tell me this, for thou art in my judgment endued with intelligence. Sanjaya said, listen to me, O king. The sons of Pandu are not covetous about this country. On the other hand, it is Duryodhana that is covetous, and Sakuni the son of Suvala, as also many other Kshatriyas who are rulers of the provinces, who being covetous of this country are not able to bear one another. I will now tell thee, O thou of Bharata's race, of the tract of land known by Bharata's name. This land is the beloved one of Indra, and O thou of Bharata's race, this land, O monarch, that is called after Bharata is also the beloved land of Manu, the son of Vivaswat, of Prithu, of Venya, of the high-souled Ikshaku, of Yayati, of Amvarisha, of Mandatri, of Nahusha, of Muchukunda, of Sivi the son of Usinara, of Rishava, of Phila, of King Mriga, of Kusika invincible one, of the high-souled Gari, of Somaka irrepressible one, and of Dilipa, and also O monarch, of many other mighty Kshatriyas. I will now, O chastiser of foes, describe to thee that country as I have heard of it. Listen to me, O king, as I speak of what thou hast asked me. Mahendra, Malaya, Sahya, Suktaimat, Rakshavat, Vindhya, and Paripatra. These 7 are the Kala mountains of Bharatvarsha. Besides these, O king, there are thousands of mountains that are unknown, of hard make, huge and having excellent valleys. Besides these, there are many other smaller mountains inhabited by barbarous tribes. Aryans and Mlekkas, O Kauravya, and many races, O Lord, mixed of the 2 elements, drink the waters of the following rivers, viz., magnificent Ganga, Sindhu and Saraswati, of Godavari and Narmada, and the large river called Yamuna, of Drishadvati and Vipapa and Vipasa, and Stlavaluka, of the river Vetravati, and that other one called Krishnavena, of Viravati and Vitasta, and Payosini and Devika, of Vedasmrita and Vedavati and Tridiva, and Ikshumalavi, of Karishini and Chitravaha, and the river called Chitrasena, of Gomati and Dhutapada, and the large river called Gandaki, of Kausiki, and Nischitra, and Kirtya, and Nichita, and Lohatarini, of Rashasi and Satakumbha, and also Sarayu, of Chamanvati and Vetravati, and Hastisoma and Disa, of the river called Saravati, and Venna and Bhimarati, of Kaveri and Chaluka and Vina, and Satavala, of Nivara and Mahila and Suprayoga, O king, of Pavitra and Kundala and Rajni, and Puramalini, of Purvabhirama and Veera and Bhima and Ogavati, of Palasini and Papahara and Mahendra and Patalavati, of Karishini and Asini and the large river Kusachira, of Makari and Pravara and Meena and Hema and Dritavati, of Puravati and Anushna and Saivya and Kapin, O Bharata, of Sadanira and Adrisha and the mighty stream Kusadara, of Sadakanta and Siva and Viravati, of Vatsu and Suvastu and Kampana with Hiranvati, of Vara and the mighty river Panchami, of Ratachitra and Jyotiratha and Viswamitra and Kapinjala, of Upendra and Vahula and Kuchira and Madhuvahini, of Vinedi and Pinjala and Vena, and the great river Pangavena, of Vidaisa and Krishnavena, and Thamra and Kapila, of Salu and Suvama, the Vedaswa and the mighty river Harisrava, of Saira and Pischala, and the river Bharadwaji, of the river Kausiki and Sona, and Chandrama, of Durgamantrasila and Brahmavadya, and Vrihadvati, of Yaksha and Rohi and Yamvunadi, of Sunasa and Thamasa and Dasi and Vasa and Varuna and Asi, of Nila and Dhrimati and the mighty river Purnasa, of Pomasi and Vrishabha and Brahma Medya, and Vrihadani. These and many other large rivers, O king, such as Sadanirmaya and Krishna, and Mandaga and Mandavahini, and Mahagari and Durga, O Bharata, and Chitropala, Chitraratha and Manjula, and Vahini and Mandakini, and Vaitarani and Kosa, and Mahanedi and Sutaimati, and Ananga and Pushpavni, and Utpalavati and Lohitya, Karatoya and Vrishasabhya, and Kumari, and Rishikulya, and Marisha, and Saraswati, and Mondakini, and Supunya, Savasanga, O Bharata, are all mothers of the universe and productive of great merit. Besides these, there are rivers by hundreds and thousands that are not known by names. I have now recounted to thee, O king, all the rivers as far as I remember. After this, listen to the names of the provinces as I mention them. They are the Kurupanchalas, the Salvas, the Maitreya's, the Jangelas, the Surasena, the Kalingas, the Vadas, the Malas, the Matsyas, the Sovalyas, Kuntalas, the Kasi Kosalas, the Chedis, the Karushas, the Bojas, the Sindhus, the Pulindakas, the Uttamas, the Dasanas, the Mekalas, the Utkalas, the Panchalas, the Kausijas, the Nikaprishtas, Purandaras, the Sodas, the Madrabujingas, the Kasis, and the further Kasis, the Jataras, the Kukuras, the Dasanas, O Bharata, the Kuntis, the Avantis, and the further Kuntis, the Gomantas, the Mandakas, the Shandas, the Vidarbhas, the Rupavahikas, the Aswakas, the Pansurashtras, the Gopashtras, and Karityas, the Adirjayas, the Kuledyas, Malashtras, the Keralas, the Varatrasyas, the Apavahas, the Chakras, the Vakratapas, the Sakas, the Vaidhas, the Magadas, the Swakshas, the Malayas, the Vijayas, the Angas, the Vangas, the Kalingas, the Yakrilomans, the Malas, the Sadelas, the Pranridas, the Mahikas, the Sasikas, the Valikas, the Vartadanas, the Abiras, the Kalajoshakas, the Aparantas, the Parantas, the Pahnabas, the Chamamandalas, the Atavasikaras, the Mayabhutas, O Sire, the Upavritas, the Anupavritas, the Surashatras, Kekayas, the Kutas, the Mahayas, the Kakshas, the Samudranishkutas, the Andhras, and O King, many hilly tribes, and many tribes residing on lands laying at the foot of the hills, and the Angamalajas, and the Manavanjakas, the Pravishayas, and the Bhargavas, O King, the Pandras, the Bhargas, the Kiratas, the Sudeshnas, and the Yamunas, the Sakas, the Nishadas, the Anatas, the Nairitas, the Durgelas, the Pratimasyas, the Kuntalas, and the Kusalas, the Tyragrahas, the Ijakas, the Kanyakagunas, the Thilabaras, the Samiras, the Madhumatas, the Sukandakas, the Kasmiras, the Sindhusoviras, the Gandhavas, and the Darsakas, the Abhisras, the Utulas, the Saivalas, and the Valikas, the Dervis, the Vanavadavas, the Vathagas, the Amaratas, and the Uragas, the Vahuvadas, the Koravyas, the Sudamanas, the Sumlikas, the Vadras, the Karishakas, the Kalindas, and the Upetyakas, the Vartayanas, the Romanas, and the Kusavindas, the Kakkas, the Gopal Kakkas, the Kuruvanakas, the Kiratas, the Varvasas, the Siddhas, the Vedehas, and the Tamraliptas, the Undrasi, the Pondras, the Seziktas, and the Pavatiyas, O Sire. There are other kingdoms, O bull of Bharata's race in the south. They are the Dravidas, the Keralas, the Prachayas, the Mashikas, and the Vanavashikas, the Karnatakas, the Mahishakas, the Vikalpas, and also the Mushakas, the Jilikas, the Kuntalas, the Sonridas, and the Nalakananas, the Kankutakas, the Cholas, and the Malavayakas, the Samangas, the Kanakas, the Kutkuras, and the Angaramarishas, the Samangas, the Karakas, the Kukuras, the Angaras, the Marishas, the Dvajinis, the Utsavas, the Sanketas, the Trigatas, and the Salvasena, the Vakas, the Kokrakas, the Pashtris, and the Lamavagavasas, the Vindhyachalakas, the Pulindas, and the Valkalas, the Malavas, the Valavas, the further Vilavas, the Kulindas, the Kalavas, the Kuntokas, and the Karatas, the Mrishakas, the Tenavolas, the Sanyas, the Alidas, the Pezivatas, the Thanayas, and the Sulanyas, the Rishikas, the Vidarbhas, the Kakas, the Tanganas, and the further Tanganas. Among the tribes of the north are the Mlekkas and the Kruras, O best of the Bharatas. The Yavanas, the Chinas, the Kambojas, the Darunas, and many Mlicha tribes. The Sukritvahas, the Kulatas, the Hunas, and the Parasikas. The Ramanas, the Chinas, and the Dasamalikas. These countries are besides the abodes of many Kshatriya, Vaisya, and Sudra tribes. Then again there are the Sudrabiras, the Dardash, the Kasmiras, and the Padis, the Khasiras, the Atreyas, the Bharadvajas, the Stanaposhikas, the Poshakas, the Kalingas, and diverse tribes of Kiratas, the Tomaras, the Hansamagas, and the Karamanjakas. These and other kingdoms are on the east and on the north. O Lord, alluding to them briefly I have told thee all. Earth, if its resources are properly developed according to its qualities and prowess, is like an ever-yielding cow, from which the threefold fruits of virtue, profit and pleasure may be milked. Brave kings conversant with virtue and profit have become covetous of earth. Endued with activity, they would even cast away their lives in battle from hunger of wealth. Earth is certainly the refuge of creatures endued with celestial bodies, as also of creatures endued with human bodies. Desirous of enjoying earth, the kings O chief of the Bharatas have become like dogs that snatch meat from one another. Their ambition is unbounded, knowing no gratification. It is for this that the Kurus and the Pandavas are striving for possession of earth, by negotiation, disunion, gift, and battle O Bharata. If earth be well looked to, it becometh the father, mother, children, firmament, and heaven, of all creatures, O bull among men. Thus ends the 9th section in the Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 10, Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva continued. Dhritarashtra said, Tell me O Sanjaya of the period of life, the strength, the good and bad things, the future, past and present of the residents O Suta, of this Vasha of Bharata and of the Hemavat Vasha, as also of Hari Vasha in detail. Sanjaya said, O bull of Bharata's race, 4 yugas set in Bharata's Vasha, viz., Krita, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. The yuga that sets in first is Treta O Lord. After expiry of Treta comes Dwapara and after that, last of all, sets in Kali. 4,000 years O best of the Kurus, are reckoned as the measure of life O best of kings, in the Krita epoch. 3,000 years is the period in Treta O ruler of men. At present, in Dwapara, persons live on earth for 2,000 years. In Kali however O bull of Bharata's race, there is no fixed limit of life's measure, in so much that men die while in the womb, as also soon after birth. In the Krita age O king, men are born and beget children by hundreds and thousands, that are of great strength and great power, endued with the attribute of great wisdom and possessed of wealth and handsome features. In that age are born and begotten munis endued with wealth of asceticism, capable of great exertion, possessed of high souls and virtuous, and truthful in speech. The Kshatriyas also, born in that age are of agreeable features, able-bodied, possessed of great energy, accomplished in the use of the bow, highly skilled in battle and exceedingly brave. In the Treta age O king, all the Kshatriya kings were emperors ruling from sea to sea. In Treta are begotten brave Kshatriyas not subject to any one, endued with long lives, possessed of heroism, and wielding the bow in battle with great skill. When Dwapara sets in O king, all the 4 orders born become capable of great exertion, endued with great energy and desirous of conquering one another. The men born in Kali O king, are endued with little energy, highly wrathful, covetous, and untruthful. Jealousy, pride, anger, deception, malice, and covetousness O Bharata, are the attributes of creatures in the Kali age. The portion that remains, O king, of this the Dwapara age is small, O ruler of men. The Varsha known as Hemavat is superior to Bharatavarsha, while Harivarsha is superior to Hemavatvarsha, in respect of all qualities. Thus ends the 10th section in the Jambukhanda Ningrama Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 11, Bhumi Parva. Dhritarashtra said, Thou hast, O Sanjaya, duly described Jambukhanda to me. Tell me now its dimensions and extent truly. Tell me also, O Sanjaya, of the extent of the ocean, of Kakadvipa and Kukadvipa, of Kamalidvipa and Kraunchadvipa, truly and without leaving anything, and tell me also, O son of Gavalgani, of Rahu and Shoma, and Surya. Sanjaya said, There are, O king, many islands with which the earth is expanded. I will describe to thee, however, only 7 islands, and the moon and the sun, and the planet Rahu also. The Jambu mountain, O king, extends for full 18,600 yojanas. The extent of the salt ocean is said to be twice this. That ocean is covered with many kingdoms and is adorned with gems and corals. It is besides decked with many mountains that are variegated with metals of diverse kinds. Thickly peopled by Siddhas and Charanas, the ocean is circular in form. I will now tell thee truly of Kakadvipa, O Bharata. Listen to me, O son of Kuru's race, as I describe it to thee duly. That island, O ruler of men, is of twice the extent of Jambudvipa. And the ocean also, O great king, is of twice the extent of that island. Indeed, O best of the Bharata, Kakadvipa is surrounded on all sides by the ocean. The kingdoms there are full of righteousness, and the men there never die. How can famine take place there? The people are all endued with forgiveness and great energy. I have now, O bull of Bharata's race, given thee duly a brief description of Kakadvipa. What else, O king, dost thou wish to hear? Dhritarashtra said, Thou hast given me, O Sanjaya, a description of Kakadvipa in brief. O thou that art possessed of great wisdom, tell me now everything in detail truly. Sanjaya said, In that island, O king, there are 7 mountains that are decked with jewels and that are mines of gems and precious stones. There are many rivers also in that island. Listen to me as I recount their names. Everything there, O king, is excellent and delightful. The first of these mountains is called Meru. It is the abode of the gods, rishis and Gandharvas. The next mountain, O king, is called Malaya, stretching towards the east. It is there that the clouds are generated, and it is thence that they disperse on all sides. The next, O thou of Kuru's race, is the large mountain called Jaladhara. Thence Indra daily taketh water of the best quality. It is from that water that we get showers in the season of rains, O ruler of men. Next cometh the high mountain called Revataka, over which in the firmament hath been permanently placed the constellation called Revati. This arrangement hath been made by the grandsire himself. On the north of this, O great king, is the large mountain called Sayama. It hath the splendor of newly risen clouds, is very high, beautiful and of bright body. And since the hue of those mountains is dark, the people residing there are all dark in complexion, O king. Dhritarashtra said, A great doubt ariseth in my mind, O Sanjaya, from what thou hast said. Why, O Suta's son, would the people there be of dark complexions? Sanjaya said, O great king, in all islands, O son of Kuru's race, men may be found that are fair and those that are dark, and those also that are produced by a union of the fair and the dark races. But because the people there are all dark, therefore is that mountain called the dark mountain. After this, O chief of the Kurus, is the large mountain called Durgasaila. And then cometh the mountain called Kisari. The breezes that blow from that mountain are all charged with odoriferous effluvia. The measure of each of these mountains is double that of the one mentioned immediately before. O thou of Kuru's race, it hath been said by the wise that there are 7 Varshas in that island. The Varsha of Meru is called Mahakasa, that of the water-giving Malaya is called Kumudottara. The Varsha of Jaladhara is called Sukumara, while that of Revataka is called Kumara, and of Sayama, Manikanchana. The Varsha of Kesara is called Mandaki, and that called after the next mountain is called Mahapuman. In the midst of that island is a large tree called Saka. In height and breadth the measure of that tree is equal to that of the Jambu tree in Jambudvipa. And the people there always adore that tree. There, in that island are many delightful provinces where Shiva is worshipped, and thither repair the Siddhas, the Charanas and the Celestials. The people there, O king, are virtuous, and all the 4 orders of Bharata are devoted to their respective occupations. No instance of theft can be seen there. Freed from decrepitude and death, and gifted with long life, the people there, O king, grow like rivers during the season of rains. The rivers there are full of sacred water, and Ganga herself, distributed as she hath been into various currents, is there. Sukumari and Kumari and Seta and Kaveraka and Mahanedi O Kauravya, and the river Manijala and Chakshus and the river Vardanika, O thou best of the Bharatas, these and many other rivers by thousands and hundreds all full of sacred water are there, O perpetuator of Kuru's race, from which Vasava draweth water for showering it as rain. It is impossible to recount the names and lengths of those rivers. All of them are foremost of rivers and sing cleansing. As heard by all men, there in that island of Saka are 4 sacred provinces. They are the Mrigas, the Masakas, the Manasas, and the Mandagas. The Mrigas for the most part are Brahmanas devoted to the occupations of their order. Amongst the Masakas are virtuous Kshatriyas granting unto Brahmanas every wish entertained by them. The Manasas, O king, live by following the duties of the Vaisya order. Having every wish of theirs gratified, they are also brave and firmly devoted to virtue and profit. The Mandagas are all brave Sudras of virtuous behavior. In these provinces, O monarch, there is no king, no punishment, no person that deserves to be punished. Conversant with the dictates of duty, they are all engaged in the practice of their respective duties and protect one another. This much is capable of being said of the island called Saka. This much also should be listened to about that island endued with great energy. Thus ends the 11th section in the Bhumi Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 12, Bhumi Parva. Sanjaya said, O Kauravya, that which is heard about the islands in the north, I will recount to thee, O great king. Listen to me now. Thither in the north is the ocean whose waters are clarified butter. Then is the ocean whose waters are curds. Next cometh the ocean whose waters are wine, and then is another ocean of water. The islands, O king, are double in area of one another as they proceed further and further towards the north. And they are surrounded, O king, by these oceans. In the island that is in the middle, there is a large mountain called Gora, made of red arsenic, while on the western island, O king, is the mountain called Krishna that is the favorite abode of Narayana. There Kesava guardeth celestial gems in profusion, and thence, inclined to grace, he bestoweth happiness on creatures. Along with the kingdoms there, O king, the celestial clump of Kusa grass in Kusadvipa, and the Salmali tree in the island of Salmalika are adored. In the Krauncha island also, the mountain called Mahakrauncha that is a mine of all kinds of gems is, O king, always adored by all the 4 orders of men. There, O monarch, is the mountain called Gomanta that is huge and consists of all kinds of metals, and whereon always resideth, mingling with those that have been emancipated, the puissant Narayana, otherwise called Hari, graced with prosperity and possessed of eyes like lotus leaves. In Kusadvipa, O king of kings, there is another mountain variegated with corals and called after the name of that island itself. This mountain is inaccessible and made of gold. possessed of great splendor, O Kauravya. There is a third mountain there that is called Kumita. The fourth mountain is named Pushpavati and the fifth is Kusaya. The sixth is called Harigiri. These are the 6 principal mountains. The intervening spaces between one another of these 6 mountains increase it in the ratio of 1 to 2 as they proceed further and further towards the north. The first Vasha is called Obida, the second is Venumandala, the third is called Surata, the fourth is known by the name of Kamvala. The fifth Vasha is called Tritimat, and the sixth is named Prabhakara. The seventh Vasha is called Kapila. These are the 7 successive Vashas. In these, gods and Gandharvas and other creatures of the universe sport and take delight. In these Vashas the inhabitants never die. There, O king, are no robbers nor any tribes of Mlekkas. All the residents are almost white in complexion and are very delicate, O king. As regards the rest of the islands, O ruler of men, I will recount all that hath been heard by me. Listen, O monarch, with an attentive mind. In the Krauncha island, O great king, there is a large mountain called Krauncha. Next to Krauncha is Vamanaka, and next to Vamana is Andakaraka. And next to Andakara, O king, is that excellent of mountains called Mainaka. After Mainaka, O monarch, is that best of mountains called Govinda, and after Govinda, O king, is the mountain called Nivida. O multiplier of thy race, the intervening spaces between one another of these mountains increase it in the ratio of 1 to 2. I will now tell thee the countries that lie there. Listen to me as I speak of them. The region near Krauncha is called Kusla, that near Vamana is Manonuga. The region next to Manonuga, O perpetuator of Kuru's race, is called Ushna. After Ushna is Pravaraka, and after Pravara is Andakaraka. The country after Andakaraka is named Munaitsa. After Munaitsa the region is called Dandabhisvana, teeming with Siddhas and Charanas. The people are almost white in complexion, O king. All these countries, O monarch, are the habitations of gods and Gandharvas. In the island of Pushkara is a mountain called Pushkara that abounds with jewels and gems. There always dwelleth the divine Prajapati himself. Him all the gods and great rishis always adore with gratifying words and worship reverently, O king. Diverse gems from Jambudvipa are used there. In all these islands, O king, the brahmacharya, truth and self-control of the dwellers, as also their health and periods of life, are in the ratio of 1 to 2 as the islands are more and more remote northwards. O king, the land in all those islands, O Bharata, comprises but one country, for that is said to be one country in which one religion is met with. The supreme Prajapati himself, upraising the rod of chastisement, always dwelleth there, protecting those islands. He, O monarch, is the king, he is their source of bliss, he is the father, and he is the grandfather. He it is, O best of men, that protecteth all creatures there, mobile or immobile. Cooked food, O Kauravya, cometh there of itself, and the creatures eat it daily, O mighty armed one. After these regions is seen a habitation of the name of Sama. It is of a starry shape, having 4 corners, and it hath, O king, 33 mandalas. There dwell, O Kauravya, 4 princely elephants adored by all. They are, O best of the Bharatas, Vamana and Airavata and another, and also Supratika, O king, with rent cheeks and mouth. I do not venture to calculate the proportions of these 4 elephants. Their length, breadth, and thickness have forever remained unascertained. There in those regions, O king, winds blow irregularly from all directions. These are seized by those elephants with the tips of their trunks, which are of the complexion of the lotus and endued with great splendor and capable of drawing up everything in their way. And soon enough after seizing them they then always let them out. The winds, O king, thus let out by those respiring elephants come over the earth, and in consequence thereof creatures draw breath and live. Dhritarashtra said, Thou hast, O Sanjaya, told me everything about the first subject very elaborately. Thou hast also indicated the positions of the islands. Tell now, O Sanjaya, about what remains. Sanjaya said, Indeed, O great king, the islands have all been described to thee. Listen now to what I truly say about the heavenly bodies and about Swabhanu, O chief of the Kauravas, as regards its dimensions. It is heard, O king, that the planet Swabhanu is globular, its diameter is 12,000 yojanas and its circumference, because it is very large, is 42,000 yojanas, O sinless one, as said by the learned of olden times. The diameter of the moon, O king, is stated to be 11,000 yojanas. Its circumference, O chief of the Kurus, is stated to be 38,900 yojanas of this illustrious planet of cool race. It hath been heard that the diameter of the beneficent, fast-going and light-giving sun, O thou of Kuru's race, is 10,000 yojanas, and his circumference, O king, is 35,800 miles, in consequence of his largeness, O sinless one. These are the dimensions reckoned here, O Bharata, of Arka. The planet Rahu, in consequence of his greater bulk, envelopes both the sun and the moon in due times. I tell thee this in brief. With the eye of science, O great king, I have now told thee all that thou hadst asked. Let peace be thine. I have now told thee about the construction of the universe as indicated in the Sastras. Therefore, O Kauravya, pacify thy son Duryodhana. Having listened to this charming Bhumi Parva, O chief of the Bharatas, a Kshatriya becometh endued with prosperity, obtaineth the fruition of all his desires, and winneth the approbation of the righteous. The king who listeneth to this on days of the full moon or the new moon, carefully observing was the while, hath the period of his life, his fame, and energy, all enhanced. His deceased sires and grandsires become gratified. Thou hast now heard of all the merits that flow from this Varsha of Bharata where we now are. Thus ends the 12th section in the Bhumi Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Thus ends the Bhumi Parva of the Bhishma Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.